And then a month later, they're like, hey, you're in Oprah's favorite things 2020. I was like, what? I was like, how? I was like, I just started. And I was like, what? And then Oprah's favorite things 2020 was released in November. And like my little hobby came into like a big business like overnight. It was crazy. Like the day Oprah posted it on her stories, we sold like 5,000 leggings in a day. And I was like, this is insane. I was like,
Oh my
and then
God. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Armand Lindsay coming with you with another episode of Big Boss Talk, the podcast. Listen, we're gonna try to keep this energy up, keep the energy live. Crazy thing is, I've interviewed this person already, but due to technical difficulties on my end, nothing that she has done. She was wonderful. She did great. I wish we could have got everything she said because I learned so much and there was so much dropped in that episode. But she was so kind enough to run it back. We're gonna ask some of the same questions, but also maybe a little bit different. But I want you guys to know that I'm coming with that energy today because I owe her that because I messed up technically on my end. All right. So listen, when you a Big Boss Talk, fan, you love the show, just know we own up to our mistakes and we're gonna do it better next time. But other than that, let me get into who I have. All right. So listen. I have Angel Johnson, age 31, career/job. She is the CEO of ICONI and founder. College degree, she has a BA in history with a minor in African American studies. She went to the Citadel, the Military Institute of South Carolina. She has her MA in intelligence studies, American Military University. Okay, she has 2.5 years in the profession. So super young in the profession, but she's moving at such a fast rate that she can give us so much game and so much knowledge on like some of the things that she's learned, some of the mistakes that she's made. But right now, we want to give Angel an opportunity to say what's up to the podcast.
hey everyone, so nice to meet you all.
Yes, yes. See, they didn't meet you the first time, but now they get to meet you. That's awesome. Cool. Well, listen, we gonna do something a little different, right? We're not gonna do two truths and a lie. I want to ask you just a basic generic question. I want to ask Angel, how has your week been? All right, how has the week been? If you can give me one thing you've learned during your week, a lesson that you learned during the week, that'll be great to tell us. If you haven't learned anything, you could just give us the most fun you had this week. Like, was it an event? Was it a shoot? Whatever you had going on this week, just let us know. But we want to know how your week went and then what you learned.
My week was very calm, and that's saying a lot in my world. One of my friends told me recently, like, you can achieve all of this, you can be a goal setting, but your stress level doesn't have to be high all the time. So I try to take a step back. On Thursday, I actually took the day off, which I was
Okay,
like,
took the day
crazy,
off.
but I didn't feel guilty for once. I think that was my first real day off in the last, like, oof.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, I guess what was anything that you learned this week?
I really just learned like, hey, you can be high achieving without having such a high stress level.
Yeah,
Like you have to balance taking care of yourself with, achieving stuff in your business, because if not, you're going to burn yourself out.
yeah. Why do you think that? I guess when we take days off, because sometimes I feel like, dang, I feel guilty because I'm like, I'm not being productive, I'm not doing anything. Why do you think people feel like non-productive or guilty when they take time to relax or take days off?
Because I think, we're constantly surrounded by grind culture, and grind
Mm-hmm.
culture tells us, hey, if we're not grinding all the time, then we're going to fail and our business is going to suck. And
Yeah,
so I think that is the biggest part. And then also, if you're a high achieving person that is doing this type of stuff, you know that it requires constant traction.
mm-hmm.
So sometimes you don't realize like taking a day off is not taking your foot off the gas. You're still doing constant traction.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a hard balance because you want to achieve it so bad. So it's like, why not just put the, pedal to the floor and just keep on grinding until you get it done?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like I don't know, so I feel guilty all the time, and I think like you said, it's the grind culture. But I feel like that's how I got. Sometimes you feel like that's how you get to where you are, and it's like, dang, I don't want to stop the essence of what got me here. But you that grind does come at a cost. I'll say that. Like if you continue to do that, it comes at a cost that you're gonna have to pay at some point. Your body will tell you to pay your dues at some point, and you don't want it to be in the middle of like you got a super busy week and then you gotta like push things back or cancel things. I think that happens a lot where you like, dang, like it caught up with me. Like that happened to us. When we tried to reschedule, like I was like, the week just kind of caught up with me. But that's cool. I think that's dope. All right, so cool. Next thing I want to ask, what's obviously this is my favorite question. What's some of the best advice someone has ever given you?
The best advice came from a CEO of another brand, Umbrella, Tracy Pickett, and I met her recently in July. And she said, make sure you're spending time working on your business and not just in your business. Gotcha. And what that means is we can get caught up in the day-to-day tasks that we forget to strategize in our business, forget to check on our goals in our business. So what she recommended is waking up early or starting the day working on your business and not in your business. And I think that's radically changed it because it's given me a more strategic mindset to start the day.
Got it. If you could give a rundown of like the first, what do you try to achieve before lunch? Do you have like a set routine that's like, I'm trying to, or does that look different from day to day? Because, you may jot down notes at the end of the day and be like, okay, this is what I have to get done tomorrow before such and such. Or is it more like you have a routine before lunch and then obviously after lunch you can get all your little minute things out the way? But do you have a set routine once you get up and things of that nature get started?
Yeah, I have like a kind of routine. So the first thing I do now when I wake up is center myself.
Okay.
So I read the Bible, say 10 things I'm grateful for out loud. And then I meditate for 5 minutes. So trying to calm myself before I start the day.
Yeah.
And then I'll start the day with the heavy lifting tasks. So they're usually like strategy type of tasks, like, hey, reviewing the quarterly goals, working on my investor deck, working on a culture guide. And then in the afternoon, I may do those like smaller tasks that don't really take a lot of like energy. They just require labor.
Okay, got it. And then as far as like centering, have you always done that, or is that a technique that you're just kind of picking up on? And what does centering, how much of an impact does centering do for you for your day?
So I think I started in the last year, but I continue to add stuff on there because I've been learning from when you read about like millionaires and billionaires and athletes and all these celebrities. Yeah. What they do is the first time you take the mornings for yourself. The morning before anyone else wakes up is for yourself. And so what they say is like you owe it to yourself. And I can tell when I start the day without reading the Bible. Like I can tell when I start the day without saying what I'm grateful for, because by 11 I'm pissed off and I'm ready to close the business down. I can tell when I start the day without meditating because I feel like I'm just thrown into the day versus when I do all those things, it's just more of a calming space because I have given myself a routine and it's like my body likes a routine and it just helps me realize like, hey, I have something to be grateful for. Hey, my connection with God is so strong and I'm not replacing God with my business.
Right.
And then meditating just like calms me like, hey, it's okay to take 5 minutes for yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's super important. I would say for me, I have a struggle. I'll be super transparent. I have an issue as far as like taking time out for myself, like, or having a plan together for my like job, like 9 to 5 job. Like I hate feeling like, I wake up sometimes I'm just like, I like what I do, but and I love the money because it helps funnel my other hobbies and the podcast, right? I usually kind of just reinvest back into what we have going on, but it gets to the point where I'm like, I want to spend more time on this than I do actual work, and I know I can't do that. So my attitude is a little jacked up or off the way I treat work. And so what I'm trying to do is get into a better habit of treating work just as important as I treat the podcast, because it's just as important, because the money that you make from work is what funds this. So you have to kind of remember, I have to remember, keep the main thing, at some point. You know what I'm saying? And it just, sometimes I get in ruts and I'm like, I don't want to, get up for this job, and I don't want to prepare myself mentally for this job. So sometimes I wake up and I just hop right into work without any type of, like you say, centering or putting some time into, the Bible, or putting some time into myself. Like, it's just, I'm not doing that. And I can see it. Like, I can tell the days, I can tell the weeks that I'm not really doing it. So I'm trying to, that's one of the things that I'm trying to get better at, because like you said, listening to successful people and just watching them, you see the routine, you see what they're doing. And as I'm going along this journey, I understand why they do those things. It's super transparent.
One step at a time. One step at a time.
For sure. One step, always. Okay, cool. What is, this is my next question. So we already got the best advice. What would you say was the most important lesson you have learned while you were at the Citadel, right? Because for most people that don't know, the Citadel is a very much military schooling. They do things a lot different than your ordinary college. The rules are a lot different. What would you say is the most important thing you learned along that journey in college?
I think one of the most important things I learned was to be myself, because in an environment like that, even though it's very rigid, you can definitely see people have different leadership styles.
Yeah.
And what I realized about myself is my leadership style is different than other people's. It has more of a caring nature to it, and that's okay. And I think that followed me also into the Air Force as well, because the first thing I'm going to do, regardless if I'm mad at you, if you did something like completely wrong, I'm going to be like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Like, let me know, are you okay, before like we have this whole conversation. There'll definitely be a conversation.
Yeah.
But I need to check on with you to make sure you're okay. And then also something I learned at the Citadel is despite everything going around, if you have everything going that's happening, all the craziness around you, if you have goals, you can accomplish your goals. So I threw myself into academics. So despite all the military stuff, it's like, hey, I want a 4.0. So let me try to get a 4.0 every semester that I can.
Yeah.
So it was things like that, like throwing myself into school and making sure like, hey, I can accomplish my goals. It gets crazy, it gets loud, but I need to accomplish these goals because this is the end goal.
Yeah. I think that that's super important to be able to focus on. And I think a lot of military, it's almost like kind of like you're trained that way, or they always say they try to break you down and build you back up. But even when I was doing RTC in college, a little different than going to a military school, but some of the teachings and coachings sometimes are the same. Like they always used to tell us like, hey, the most important thing that you need to control is up here. Everything else around you doesn't really matter. So if we have a task at hand or we have a goal, we need to be focused on how do we achieve the task and the goal versus not being sidetracked about everything that's going around you. And I think that, that's a super important life skill, even though the military may, I don't know how, what's a good way to coach that. Maybe it doesn't have to be as hectic as like the military does, or it doesn't have to be so demanding. And shout out to the military, thankful for all the veterans and the people that serve. I'm just saying, the tactics sometimes I'm like, this is super extreme, but sometimes they're trying to prepare you for extreme circumstances, like people that go off to tours and they go off into these different wars. They have to work with things that they have, so extreme is always important. But to me, I'm just like, dang, like, does it have to be this extreme? And it does, but being able to focus on one thing and really dialing it in is super important. So I appreciate that from the information that you learned from the Citadel, because we'll talk about the Citadel a little bit more in just your time there. But what did you want to be growing up? Like, what was your what did you actually want to be?
I was the most ambitious little girl ever. So I used to tell my mom, I was like, oh, I'm going to be lawyer, then I'm going to be a senator, and then I'm going to be the first Black woman president. And my family, like, you can ask anyone in my family, they'll be like, yep, this is what she said. Like, I remember I told my grandma, my old Southern grandma, I was like, Granny, I'm not going to learn how to bake because I'm going to law school, then I'm going to be a senator, then I'm going to be president. So someone, I don't have time for this. And she went with it. So my whole family, like throughout my whole life, they were like, yeah, Angel, this is what Angel has told us she's going to do since like third grade. So we're just going with it.
Yeah, shout out to mom and dad. They just like, listen, she's gonna do it. She's got it. Do you know how to bake now? Because does it come?
I do know how to bake things I wish I learned from my grandma. How to bake and how to sew as a fashion designer now because I never learned how to sew.
Oh man, grandma would have put you in the game. I mean, she would have definitely helped you out. But so that's cool. So we talked about want to be a president, woman's president, first lady president. That would have been super dope. Along the journey of all these different hobbies and things that you wanted to do, what changed your mind? How did we, obviously, being young and putting like certain titles on yourself early without really knowing yourself is can be, obviously that's why I think that's the force in which sometimes things change. But for you personally, I just want to know what unique things changed about you that made you change your goals and, your viewpoints on what you wanted to do.
So like going to the Citadel, like getting towards the junior year when we had to decide in the Air Force what we wanted, Air Force ROTC, what jobs we wanted. I started thinking like, do I really want to go to law school? Maybe. I was like, let me start my career field first. Okay. And so I ended up getting intelligence, which was my first choice career field. And then when I got into intelligence, I loved it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I can sit around and research like cultures all day and do all these cultural studies and do all this analysis and all this like diagramming because I'm a super nerd. So and then I just liked it so much that I never pursued the law school thing because I was like, then my goal up until maybe last year was like, I'll just stay in for 20 years as an intelligence officer. But then I think my path and the military's path.
Uh-oh. I lost you for a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Did you lose me?
A little bit, but it's okay. You said with the military and your path was a little bit different.
Yeah, I got to a fork in the road with the military and decided I would rather choose myself than. I think besides different social issues coming up that the military and me have a fundamental disagreement with. Yep. I also think just moving around every 2 to 3 years and always doing a new job it's like I can't pass the military on to my family. Yeah, you can get a 20-year retirement, but you can't pass that on to your family. So I always thought, what would Angel Johnson pass on to her family versus Captain Johnson? Because they were two radically different people.
Yeah, Angel Johnson versus Captain Johnson. I guess, how do you, it almost feels like you created Captain Johnson was another identity or another part of who you were versus like your actual self. Like to me, I've always, and I'll kind of explain what I mean. I've always had a nickname, and this was something I was reading, and I'm like, maybe this is, sometimes you deal with dualities all the time. There's a front and a back to everything, and so I've always grown up with a nickname. I don't want to disclose my nickname; it's a little embarrassing, but I've always got this nickname growing up. Everybody's called me this all my life. Still to this day, they call me Peanut. All right, so don't laugh. I don't even know where I get it from. I got two different stories, but Peanut was the nickname, and so it's just kind of stuck with me. But every time people call me that, I know what comes with that nickname as far as like what people view me as, like cool, big guy, always laughing, always gonna have you smiling. Just an injection of energy. I always feel like if I step in the room, I want to inject it with some type of energy where people can notice me, people can remember me, and hopefully I left the room better than what I found it. Yeah. But now sometimes I'm fighting with this duality of like, I'm always serving for other people versus like serving for myself. You know what I mean? Like, what do you like? Do you really like? And I think I do like to make people, help people have a good day or create that energy. But I also be like, dang, like, is anybody gonna inject some energy into me? Because like I can't,
Yeah.
you can't keep going into places and putting your energy in, and then you not really, nobody's like refilling you, or nobody's really injecting that energy back into you. So I'm like, I'm fighting with the duality of like, should I let let this part of who I am kind of like slide a little bit and focus more on me. And I'm starting to understand like there's neither a wrong or right answer on how you handle the situation. I'm always a person like, no, what's the right answer? Because like,
Yes.
what should I do? I really want to know what's going to help me, but
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong. So when you talk about Captain Johnson and then Angel Johnson, two separate different people, what was Captain Johnson like, and then what's Angel like?
Well, Captain Johnson, I think, was a lot more rigid,
Mm.
didn't have any, and it's not like I had two different personalities. It's
All
just,
right.
different actions stood out. But even now, as CEO and founder of ICONI, like, I definitely think there's two different sides of me. So I'm an introvert, and people are like, how are you an introvert? You do like all these interviews. I was like, okay, but I'm gonna go home and recharge by myself. And then I think it's always funny when people meet me in person and it's not like a business setting, just
Yeah.
regular. Like, oh, you're kind of quiet. You're kind of awkward. I was like, yeah, that's a little bit me. But it's
Yeah,
like
very mean.
when I have like a business event or like a podcast interview or any like thing, I can just like, it's like a switch. You turn it
Yeah.
on. I was like, I love to talk about my business. So it's just like, I just can't do small talk. Like, don't ask me how the weather is. It's just going to be awkward for both of us.
I think that's true. I mean, you got to be able to, that switch to be able to turn it on, turn it off. I mean, especially, it's helping your business, right? And that's what you're most passionate about. So it's like, I'm going to do anything that's going to help the business grow at the end of the day. If I got to talk in front of people, and I saw your I forgot where you were, but I saw on your IG you were I don't pitching ICONI in front of a group of people. It was you were on a stage, and you had your pitch, kind of down to the T, as far as like going from top to bottom, who you were, how'd you find ICONI, going through it. And I was like, man, like I wish I could do that. Like, and it's
You can.
and
You
I
can.
knew you were gonna say I could. I was, but to me, I'm not, my brain doesn't, it's hard for my brain to function like that, to be structured and to memorize. I feel like you gave me like, that was like a complete essay. Like when teachers ask you like, hey, put an essay together or a biography together, I want to beginning, middle, end. Your whole conversation was beginning, middle, end, and it flows so well. You had the comedic relief in there, about the experience on how ICONI, what gave you the idea, the comedic relief. It took people to catch on. I didn't think they didn't know if that was a serious moment or a funny moment. Because when you said, they was like, and then they started laughing because they saw you laughing. So they was like, okay, cool, it's funny. But I just wish, and I know I can, but again, it's hard for my brain to be very structured like that. But I really think that you do have a switch where you can turn it on, turn it off, and be able to go into your mode of ICONI, founder and CEO. But then you also have the side of, it's I'm gonna recharge on my own. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do things. I can see that. So that's cool. So then we're gonna move the conversation a little bit forward, right? So we're gonna get into your baby. How did, obviously, like I just said, I watched the Instagram story. I know how it started. We had this conversation before, but I get excited hearing how people's ideas are birthed all the time, because sometimes ideas are birthed by some of the craziest moments in your
Yeah.
life. Some of the most, sometimes they're harsh moments, sometimes they're funny moments, sometimes it's like, okay, whatever, but it's just it just comes boom. So how did the idea of ICONIC start? What made you want to get your own athletic wear clothing brand?
So from like a serious note first, I was always trying to think like, hey, the duality we talked about, like, so what does Angel Johnson's life look like if I get out the military? So what would I want to do? And then I had a super embarrassing moment. So I was in a military gym and I was squatting. And one of my guy friends came up to me in the nicest way possible and was like, I don't know what type of leggings those are, but I can see everything. So that was the story that people didn't know whether to laugh. And they were like, oh, people are always like, oh, poor thing. But I'm so glad you started a business. And then I actually created them like my first sketch, maybe a week after that at 1 a.m. while working a night shift in the Air Force. So it just kind of hit me. I was like, oh, I can totally start an activewear brand. And I turned to one of my sergeants I was working with. I was like, hey, I'm going to start an activewear brand. He's like, it's 1 a.m. We're just trying to make it through the shift. He's like, we're just trying to make it to 4 a.m. Can we stop? And I was like, what?
No, we cannot stop, sir. So that's obviously, super, super important how the ideas start. Like, that's how simple, something was said, hey, I don't know what type of leggings you got on, but I can see everything. One, the reason why I said I don't know if it's serious, or like, it's just like, what are we focusing on at the gym right now? And then, it's just like, but if he didn't say it, didn't spark the conversation, ICONI wouldn't be here. So shout out to your good guy friend. Yeah. We needed that spark and that boost because now we have the design at 1 a.m. and we go from there. So we got the design from 1 a.m. All right. Where do we go from there? Because obviously we can have great ideas. We all know ideas are common. Like everybody has great ideas, but the execution of the idea is what sometimes is missing. So where do we go from that sketch at 1 a.m.? How do we go into a full-on having a warehouse, getting, to where we are now?
Oh, it went super fast. So my friends call me like a master executor because usually when I'm actually not an idea person. So it's really hard for me to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
But when I do come up with ideas, it happens fast. So the sketch, and then I got the LLC like maybe 2 weeks later because I got it expedited.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, I launched the first products and I was like, this is just going to be a hobby. I launched a couple lines. And then in August of 2020, someone from Oprah's Favorite Things hit me up and I was like, oh, this is totally a scam. They're just trying to take my money. They were like, hey, we're sending you a label in a package. You just put the clothes in there. And then I was like, oh, okay, this may be real. This is an overnight label. No one pays for overnight labels. They're like 90 something bucks for UPS. and then a month later, they're like, hey, you're in Oprah's Favorite Things 2020. I was like, what? I was like, how? I was like, I just started. And I was like, what? And then Oprah's Favorite Things 2020 was released in November. And like my little hobby came into like a big business like overnight. It was crazy. Like the day Oprah posted it on her stories, we sold like 5,000 leggings in a day. And I was like, this is insane. I was like,
oh my God.
And then 2021, I finally got out the military, but like the first part of the year, it's like kind of like steady state for my business because getting out the military is pretty hard. I didn't expect it to be like have so much stuff surrounding it. Wow. And then this year, I feel like it's been a whirlwind of actually like brand building, really putting myself out there as like a business owner, not just like a military person that owns a business, because it was a big difference in my mindset. And then just like really like pushing the brand.
Wow, that's crazy. So is Oprah's favorite little things?
Favorite things.
Favorite things. Okay, so Oprah's favorite. How crazy is that? Like, Oprah got power now. So, when she put something out there, like the book club is crazy. Like everybody's going to get the book, they reading. What did you think? Like, because for that to happen right out the gate, like a lot of times that doesn't really happen like that. Like that seems like a huge, I would say definitely a huge blessing. For someone like you, but that's also like when things like that happen, that lets me know like it just sometimes feels like a sign like I'm supposed to be doing this, because why would and tell me that, I guess tell me the idea behind Oprah's Favorite Things. Is this where she just picks a few items and then highlights them to like her fans, or what was the scope and idea of Oprah's Favorite Things?
So she's been doing this, I think, for the last like 10 years at least. Mm-hmm. She'll pick a list of favorite things for her audience. And it doesn't really have a set number, but they fall into different categories, mostly things for women, of course, because that's most of her target demographic.
Yeah.
And that it was definitely a huge blessing, because it's like, it's not even just those big blessings in business. I think it's the little like things that show you're in alignment with your path.
Yeah.
That have help keep you going. And I think that's has been the biggest things, like those little things. But like being on that list like totally changed everything. Even the build up for it, I had to put a lot of faith into the process and God, because I have never sold that much. And they were like, hey, you got to have all the inventory to be ready. So I was like, oh wow, I don't even have a business. Like, well, I have a business, but
right.
I was like, I was like, okay, so how am I going to fund this? So
that's what I was going to ask, like the funding of all that.
I took don't
do this.
don't do what I'm about to say. But I knew I had researched the Oprah's favorite things list and saw what could happen from it.
Yeah.
So I just took 3 of my credit cards, purchased a bunch of leggings on my personal credit cards. Don't do this. Don't have anyone do this. It's bad advice.
I'm not gonna have anyone do it. It's up to them. But if if it's in their heart to do this, then
don't do this. Use somebody else's money to fund it. And then, I mean, it worked out, because by the end of the year, I was able to pay off the credit cards without any interest. So it all worked out.
Yeah, that's it. All worked out. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. It all works out.
It all works out. See, I didn't even get this story. This is pretty cool. See, it's always when you run it back, you get more better. You get all types of information. Okay, so obviously, Oprah, favorite things, super big blessing. I would say this: if that didn't happen, how would you know that you're still in alignment with what you should, like your purpose? Like, I think that right there was a huge energy booster to spark oh yeah, let's get it rocking and rolling. Let's take it a little bit more serious, right? Sometimes, as I would say, a lot of times, as business starters, we don't get that ultimate boost in the beginning, right? It kind of comes from building and going through some hardships at first. Not saying you didn't go through that, but I'm just saying, like, being a part of something iconic like that, as Oprah's favorite things. If you didn't have that, how would you know that you're still in your alignment or still in your purpose? Do you feel like how would you would have paid attention to that?
Well, I think I'm constantly shown, even today, I'm still in alignment and purpose, because I tell people I haven't made it yet, but it's just, I think it's the small ways. So it would, so one day I wanted to give up. I was like, okay, it was like earlier this year, I wanted to just give up on my business. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just not a good business owner. I'm like super stressed. And my mom, when I first told her, I was like, I'm getting out the military to be a fashion designer and a business owner. She's like, what? She's like, you have a master's degree. You've been working for this like your whole college life. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But it was the funniest thing to her. I was like, I'm quitting. I'm gonna just close ICONI. I'm done with this. And then my mom, she like switched. She was like, no, you can't. She's like, you need to stay working on your dream. She's like, it's not gonna be easy, but she's like, you can't give up on your dream. I'm not gonna let you. She's like, I gave up on one of my dreams to be a chemist, and I'm not gonna let you do it. Ooh. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing. I was like, and it's little stuff. That was huge for me.
Yeah.
But it was just like, oh, like one of the people that was most worried about me, she's like pushing me towards my dream right now. It's like, okay, that's saying something to me.
Yeah, that's huge, man. Like, coming from people like that, like your mom, like having that type of support, like that's enough, like, to keep you going. You know what I mean? Like, and having her say that, like, I'm not letting you quit on your dreams. You know what I'm saying? Because she knows, like, it's a dream for you. You put a lot of hard work, sweat, blood, tears into this, and you got to see it through. So I think you're right. Having little conversations like that, they kind of like sets your mind free to say, like, all right, cool. Like, I may have wanted to quit yesterday, but a new day is always another reset button. Like, if I get the opportunity to wake up, it's a new day, reset. Yesterday didn't matter. what can we learn from the mistakes and move on. So I mean, that's super important. So I will ask, you said don't advise people to do this, and that was fund all those leggings with your personal credit cards. Knowing what you know now, how would you have handled if that situation happens again, right? And you need to fund up again. Instead of 5,000 legs this time, we need 10,000, 15,000 legs. How would you go about doing that situation now?
I think you should always seek outside funding. People are willing to pay. So there's government programs that are willing to pay for you to start your business. So whether it's grants, government loans, or just assistance programs, which a lot of times you don't have to pay all that money back. Reaching out to different nonprofit organizations that fund businesses, or if you're one of the lucky people that a bank will finance, lend to. Yeah. So I think those are avenues. So you should always seek avenues that don't require your personal funding.
Gotcha. So how do we find, what type of search would we put in Google to find the right place to go get these? Because I mean, getting outside funding, obviously we want to do that, but sometimes it's hard to know the correct way, the correct resources. Is there a link? Is there something? You know what I mean? How can we help get them to the water? Now, if they drink it or not, that's on them. But is there a certain grant that you might have went to or that wanted to go to to get that funding?
So I'd say start with whatever your state is, followed by Small Business Development Center. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times all states have them. They're sponsored by the Federal Small Business Administration. And so Colorado, for example, has the whole website around the Small Business Development Center and tells you different funding sources that you can go to, and has a list of other information. Your Small Business Development Center can give you free courses and free strategy sessions, marketing sessions. You can talk to a banker. They have all these people are experts, and the federal government and your state government pays them to help you for free.
Okay, got it. So we can start locally. Small business, probably typing in something like small business funding, small business grants, or just follow small business. I forgot what you said. The
development center.
Development center. That's it. So Small Business Development Center. So if we could type in some type of search there, that's a good way to start. Okay, cool. As far as ICONI goes, what were some of the hiccups in the beginning? Right. What were some of the things that kind of set you back, or some of the things that you had to learn in the beginning to have a functioning, well-developed business, whether it took stress off you, whether it made things easier, how the process of ordering went, hoarding all of the gear? Take us through that process in the beginning, some of the things that hindered you from being the most functional.
I think learning how the manufacturing process works. So, hey, I knew I needed to request a sample, but it's after I make changes, I should request a second and third sample. So giving yourself enough time. So I never used to give myself enough time to produce a line. I was I want to set a date. But then I realized, hey, the sampling process may take a lot longer.
Okay, got it.
And then don't let manufacturers push you to not get a second or third sample, because sometimes they don't want to make you a second and third sample, but you have made changes. And then one of the things I learned early on is a lot of times they don't want you to get a sample. They want to try to fulfill a full order, and then they give you a sample after you pay. And I was no, we're not going to do that. I never did that in the beginning. So but test your product as much as possible. Don't let people rush your process.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is learning what shipping carrier to use. So there's different shipping rates if you're getting stuff from overseas or wherever, really. Okay. There's sea shipping, which takes a lot longer, but it's a lot cheaper. Okay. There's air shipping, which is in the middle. It's kind of like a balance of price and how long it takes to get there. Then there's express shipping that is going to cost the most you've ever paid in your life, but it's going to get there fast. It's going to get there as fast as possible. So learning those different shipping types.
Yeah.
and then learning what actual delivery carrier you want to ship your stuff. So I had a delivery carrier. I'm not going to say which one.
Got you.
Lose 8 boxes of my leggings during Black Friday 2020 when I was in Oprah's favorite things. Sent me into like a crying spell. But because he was like, I left my truck open and someone stole it. I was like, stole 8 boxes of 50-pound leggings? This don't sound right.
No.
But so those are definitely hiccups, and yeah, I still watching that guy.
Yeah.
But no, I have changed. I immediately changed, and then I think always just having a strategic marketing plan. So a lot of times, like inventors and creators will come up with this great idea of a great product or a great service, but then we don't think of all the marketing that goes along with it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So obviously, number one, sampling, huge deal. Like, make sure you get your samples, make sure you get your quality. I actually have a family member that is into that type of into clothing, and they take sampling huge. Like, he'll get like 1 to 3 samples before he's like, yeah, I like this, or no, I like that. And then sometimes when you get a good design or a good thing that you want to work with, sometimes the sampling process goes a little bit faster. You just kind of got to work on like, the fitting. Maybe does the size fit? Because like, take this for example. Like, this is a Chanel patch. Once you understand that, okay, I like the Chanel patch. Like, I know how that's gonna come. The sample then becomes, I just need a size to see how it's gonna fit on the body. Versus like, oh, I don't like this patch. Like, we got to redo this. Like, you know what you're getting with this. Now it's more so you don't have to get as many samples. I think in the beginning, once you're figuring out your product and figuring out your quality, what you want to really hang your hat on, then that's where you need to get like multiple samples. And I'm talking like I know. I don't know. I'm just telling you about.
No, that is the truth.
I don't have a clothing brand. I'm just telling.
No, that's the truth. Just take time on whatever your sampling process is. I think I'm the worst when it comes to doing sampling fast. Like, my manufacturer already knows, like, I'm gonna get the sample and then I may not talk to her for 2 weeks.
Got it.
Because I just want to see if I love it.
Yep.
Like, did I wake up and think like, oh, I really want to put these pair of leggings on? Because if I didn't, I'm not going to produce them. Like, the women that with different body types in mind, when I gave them the samples to try on, that they wake up and like, oh, I only want to work out in this particular leg. And if they didn't, then that's not the right legging.
Right, for sure. I think that's key. But I think your mindset and how you talk about your business and how important it is to, like, did I wake up and really want to put these leggings on today? Like, I'm not going to the gym, but I just want to put these leggings on because they're comfortable. Like, every day, like, do you get that feeling? Like, when you ask yourself those questions, that lets people know, like, for me, I'm like, oh, she's definitely into her business. Like, she knows it front, back, side to side. And I think people like knowing that there's a brand that really cares about the product, because there's a lot of brands out here that just, may have a cool design, but don't really care about the quality of the product. So then that kind of hinders the brand, The design is great, but everything else is kind of like, if I wash it one time, but I'm only gonna I'm paying $45 for the shirt, but only get to wear it once, like, because I'm gonna wash it. So you gotta be careful about that. And then we talked about, obviously you said just shipping, which is huge. Like, that's a whole debacle in itself, up and down. So I'm going through this because I want people that listen, that want to start a brand, to understand, like, these, take advice from somebody that's been through it already. So, like, you need to have these things in line first. Like, would you say that needs to be done? Some of the things you think about first before saying, like, all right, let's just get a batch of shirts and order and just try to sell them. Like, I think the shipping, like, understanding what you're going to use as far as shipping is something you should think about first, or is that you can't really think about that until you ship a batch of orders? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if your first shipment doesn't go well, it's okay. Like, I never had, like, besides that, all my shipping was good, but could I have paid a cheaper price? Yes. So I think definitely when you find a great manufacturer, they're going to kind of help you with that. So as soon as you ask them, I have, like, select questions I tell people to ask, like, a manufacturer. It's like, hey, how much the sample costs? How long will it take to make the sample? Once I confirm the sample, will I need a post-production sample? I mean, a pre-production sample. How long will it take for that to ship? How long will bulk manufacturing take? And how long will it take to ship? And then all of those, how much does it cost?
Got it.
So really, if you know you want to know your cost every step of the way, because you don't want to order a batch of T-shirts and you think it's going to be $500, but now you have to tack on the shipping, you have to tack on the tax if you're going to get express shipping, and then you have to tack on like what part of the holiday is, and if you're getting stuff from China, what are U.S. China relations at the time, because that may cost you an extra $1,000 just in like tariffs.
Oh my God, it tax on quick. So got it.
Yeah.
Manufacturing. You talked about manufacturing. I think this is what we talked about last time we spoke, and you was just like I always when I think about clothing brands, I know manufacturing is sometimes super important to certain brands, and they will not help you kind of get a manufacturer or understand. But I know last time we talked, you had no issues in letting people know like, hey, this is where you can go to find good manufacturers. Can you go into that one more time to be able to, help people out and say, this is what you need to, this is how you find a good manufacturer. Like, what are some of the websites that they can view? What are some of the things that helped you find a good manufacturer, or where did you go to find a good manufacturer?
So if you want to manufacture in like the US or China, you can go to makersrow.com. You do have to sign up for it, and I think it's a slight subscription fee, but it allows you, they can help you bring your from ideas all the way to the end production. If you want European, I think mostly Western, but there's some Eastern European manufacturers, you can go to europages.com. Or sometimes I think it may default to europages.co.uk, whatever the UK URL for it is. If you want Chinese manufacturers, a lot of people have heard about it, but it's alibaba.com. So it's like a lot of Asian manufacturers, and there's some manufacturers there from South America. I don't really have like a good tap on like South American manufacturers. Yeah. And then also when you're looking through getting these manufacturers, make sure they have like 3 years experience, check their reviews, and then also check their delivery rates, because a lot of times the reviews are separate than the delivery rates. So like, hey, you need to see if they're going to be on time, if the quality is going to be good, and just make sure you have like good communication with them. If you see that they're immediately trying to sell you something, that may not be the right one. Like my manufacturer, like my main one that I make, Audrina, that I work with, I love her so much because she'll tell me if my idea is bad. Like there's been so many times where she's like, oh no, that legging won't work with this material. I was like, oh, but I want it. Like in my head it will work.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, but, and a lot of times she'll send me what I wanted and then send me what her edit would have been. And then I'm like, okay, I need to listen to you, because your edit's always better than what I want, because she has like 25 years of manufacturing experience. So she totally understands. Yeah. And then you're going to start, when you have like a business page on Instagram or Facebook, manufacturers from all over the world are going to reach out to you because they're small, as some of them are very small. And if they're trying to build their business as well, they want to start with you at the beginning and build with you. Yeah. So you will start to make all type of connections. They'll send you emails. And then like when it changes to that, like when the ball is in your field, like I tell people, like, get them to send you free samples. Like, I'm not paying for a sample. You guys send me a free one if you want to work with me.
Yeah, that's super dope. Okay, cool. So we know where to kind of get. I guess with United States manufacturers, the Chinese, I guess the preference is just depending on, I guess, what you're getting out of it. Like I would assume like if you go overseas, sometimes it may be a little bit cheaper. As far as like the bulk orders go, like getting them over, like why do people choose United States manufacturing over, China, in China or in Europe? Like why would people choose between either one of those? Does it just depend on the product that you're selling?
Yeah, it depends on the product, and then also like kind of like also your brand value. So certain things the US is better at manufacturing. And then, some people only want their product to be made in the US.
Got it.
And then environmental aspects. So if your brand is more environmentally conscious and you're based in the US, it makes more sense to, cut down your CO2 emissions by not having to ship, across the sea. But it kind of depends. Like, and then Europe, like, so it's what kind of garments are you producing? So are you producing certain types of clothing that European designers are going to have, or European manufacturers are going to be better at? Mm-hmm. And then producing overseas in Asian countries such as China or Taiwan, yes, the price may be lower, but how much is the shipping? Is the shipping worth it, or is it easier, or is it better for you to find someone in the US? So it's really going to depend on your product, how much you want to spend, and then does it align with your brand values?
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate that. That's enough of you giving your sauce away. What I'll say, what I do want to ask though is, we talked about mentorship last time, and how important that is. How important is having a mentor, along this journey?
It is super important to have a mentor along the journey. I didn't have one at the beginning, so I was just trying to not really learning. And I think that's where the mindset shift happened. So this is like a new development that I didn't tell you last time. So I went through a mini MBA program. Inner City Capital Connections is free. That's a plug. You can look that up. I got a mentor, and she was a marketing director at one of the largest activewear brands overseas before she came to the US. And she was my mentor through the whole process and really just like helping me like take my brand to the next level. Yeah. And then recently I made her my COO. So it's like, what? Oh my God. Yes. So I made her my COO. So I think mentorship is super important. And I have 3 mentors from Entrepreneurship for All, which is another free business accelerator program.
Yeah.
Across the country, and just the way they think. I think it's good to have a mentor that looks like you, so you can kind of get that human experience. Like, hey, as a Black woman, this is how my experience may be going through a product-based business, right. Even if it's not the same. I think it's good to have a mentor that's in your industry, and then I think it's good to have a mentor that's nothing like you. So. 2 of my mentors from the Entrepreneurship for All program are white men. And I don't think I've ever had a white man like really mentor me besides like the Air Force. And just to see like the way they think.
Right.
It's like sometimes I feel like my views may be limited, like of what I think I can accomplish. But like just to hear all the confidence they injected in me, like, oh, no, we can find it. We can make it work. No, we can do this. Oh, this, like, there was never a stopping point. It was always like, oh, no, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
So mentorship is super important.
That's super dope. And I think I expressed to you last time, it's like, for me, it's been like hard to really find a mentorship, especially in this space. I would say this space is obviously just like any other spaces, definitely, I'm not going to say saturated. I think saturated is a bad word, but I just think it's overpopulated. Or there's a lot that you can take from, right? Everybody, has a brand, right? Everybody is popping up with different podcasts. It's just like, what niche of people that you attract, and, how do you cater to those niche of people? But for me, it's like I said, it's been kind of hard for me to find mentorships. For one, is because a lot of these podcasts are, just starting, just like I am, and they've built their success and things of that nature. And sometimes I think people just don't. Not that they don't want to. I think they just don't want to add on that extra responsibility if they don't have to. And then also it's like I want to work with someone that's where I'm trying to go too. If I come across a certain scenario or stumbling road, I want to have confidence, I guess, that you've been through this, and then that you can kind of help give me advice on what decision I should make, right? Because I'm not going to make the decision based off you. I'm just going to listen to what you've been through and then make it based off what I feel is comfortable for me. And so how would you help someone? I guess you could say help me or help someone listening. How would you help them find or discover a mentor, or where is a good place you can find mentorship?
So I think either going through accelerator programs or mini MBA programs, and you can research those by your state because a lot of times they're free.
Okay.
And they will usually give you a mentor because that's part of it. And it may not be a mentor in your industry, but they still have the mindset. And then I think LinkedIn is a great tool. So if you put, if you search LinkedIn for, podcast hosts or me searching for fashion designers, we can't be afraid to like reach high and reach out to these people, because a lot of times you will find out that the people that are the highest in your industry are the most willing to mentor you. Gotcha. Yes, they're going to be super busy, so you need to make sure all the meetings are like valuable. But I've had like I had this multi-million-dollar activewear industry based in Ireland. I had one of the guys give me like mentorship sessions, and he's their CFO, and I was just like, me? But and then I think it's very important also when you find a mentor, make sure you're on your game.
Yeah.
Like have your list of questions. Don't waste their time. Maximize the time that you have with this person. And it's up to the mentee to maintain the relationship. Your mentor shouldn't reach out to you. You should reach out to them. You need to build their trust and see why like you're worth their time. So I feel like that's a way. And then also you can kind of just, social media is so easy to hit people up. I know people get tons of DMs, and so they may not respond to everything, especially if it goes into the request box. But just like, don't be afraid to like shoot your shot. Like a lot of these people will be willing to mentor you. And sometimes it'll just take a while for them to get back. But I think that's why it's better to connect with them on LinkedIn versus Instagram, because you get so many messages on Instagram. Just like connect with them on LinkedIn, tell them like, hey, can I get one mentorship session with you and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Because also just because someone is where you want to be, they may not be the perfect mentor for you. You may actually need someone that's more in the middle.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate situation, that relationship, mentorship, because it's a lot of variables that come into play, right? You want somebody that, like you said, there's 3 levels. Somebody you can, somebody that looks like you, somebody that maybe can relate to you on a more deeper than surface level. Then you have, someone that's, in the industry, and then also someone that doesn't look like you or, doesn't probably have the same value as you, but possibly can help you in the industry. Somebody I talked with recently, they was like, you should have 2 types of mentors: people that sponsor you, and then it was something else they said, and you hit on it. You just said it a little different, and it was like, okay, cool. Like all the information is starting to sound the same. So that's good, and letting people know that you're on the right track. So thank you for that. And then I know we coming up on an hour. The conversation always goes by fast. I try to squeeze in, little new questions, different questions. I think my last one would be, how do you analyze your business? Like what from top to bottom? Because you talked about processes and POPs, or is it PO processes and procedures, or what it's what's the acronym that's taking you from like, okay, someone places an order, the order comes in, you fulfill the order, like, but it's automatic, like automation, like you're not like, you have, what is that called? I could have sworn.
I'm not really sure, but I know it's like having like systems in place for your business. But...
Systems, okay, so systems, but isn't there an acronym for like the systems? I've heard Ronnie Brown say this so many times. You know who Ronnie Brown is? No?
Yes, but I don't know
No worries, it's all good. But systems, how do you figure out what systems to put in place for, like, in the back end of your business? What is your analyzing process when you feel like you have a kink, like there's something I could get better at here? Like, who's analyzing your business for you? Like, do you have other people like look and see where, or this is where you could get better at? Or is it all you? Like, it's you going through your business and figuring out what you can get better at?
No, it's other people and me. So like when I first started, I went through, hey, this is how I would like to get an order, and this is all the things I would like to receive. And then research like the industry standards for like, hey, shipping for a clothing business. But I also have my friends go through the ordering process, or mentors go through the ordering process. like I ask my friends all the time, and I put on my Instagram stories all the time. I'm like, hey, just did a website update. Will someone go back through and look at it? It's like, because I it's so nerdy. I just take so much pride in it. It's just like, hey, just did an update. Is it easy to click, or is it? I'm very big on that. Okay. And then even the website speed, I'm like, oh, I'm at a C minus. I gotta get to a B plus at least.
Right.
Like, so no, and I think also it helps to, the way I did it is like I made guides for everything I do in my business. And so I took a step back and wrote down everything I do in a day. And I thought, hey, if I like, I'm sick for a week, if I give someone this checklist or this guide, could they do everything? And if they can't do everything and it's not an easy process, that means I need to change something.
Right.
And then also I just try to find a way to automate as much as possible. So my back end of my website is Shopify. Mm-hmm. So I'm constantly going on there and looking at apps that can automate anything. So a lot of stuff on my website's automated already, and a lot of the back end stuff is automated, because when you're 1 deep or like 2 or 3 deep, it's like, hey, we need to automate as much as possible. Yeah. Like, I don't want to have to send you an email asking you for a review. I have an app that does that.
Got it.
That makes sense. Like everything is usually an app for my website that helps me just make the process easy. Even the return process. Before, I had people like fill in this sheet, and I said, this is stupid. Why am I having people fill in this sheet? Let's just automate the process. So I installed a return app. So it automatically put their order number in, automatically traces their order. Mm-hmm. It will tell them that they can refund it. Give them a shipping label and they can return it. And if they want to exchange it, it allows them to put in what item that they want to be exchanged for, and holds the item for them.
Got it. That makes sense. I remember it was something we talked about that last time, and I was like, that was important, and I wanted to document and make sure that I hit on. I can't remember the acronym. I totally, sorry guys for the blank, but I'm definitely heard somebody call it. I think it's just processes and procedures, in place. Maybe that's, but I think she was. I don't know how she said it, but processes and procedures, having things automated helps you out a lot. Saves you a lot of time, especially when you're one man band, 2-man band. Like she said, 1, 2, 3 deep. Having a lot of things automated saves you a lot of time and a lot of less brain power. So, Angel, I appreciate it. It's always been a pleasure talking to you. Even for the second time, I still figured out that I learned something new every time I talk with you. Like, you're super smart, super genius. I'm glad that I was able to get you on the podcast and we were able to talk, provide a little bit of information, a little bit of insight to anybody that might want to start a brand. It doesn't have to necessarily be clothing brand, because some of the things we talked about is fitting for all types of products. It doesn't necessarily have to be clothing brands. So being strategic in what you do, having a game plan, the execution is super important. And I think you hit on why execution was important and how it's been able to help you. We talked about funding, some of the important things, do's and not do's. Don't max out your personal credit cards. Get those grant fundings and local funds to outsource and sponsor your dreams. I couldn't ask for anything more. What advice? Did you have fun?
Yeah, I did have fun. Thank you so much for having me. The quick other piece of advice I have for everyone is read books, read articles, read stuff on your industry. I feel like reading is a dying thing.
Yeah.
So it's like pick up books, go to the business section of your local bookstore and read, because you need mindset books, you need creativity books, you need business books. Read as much as you can. Listen to podcasts. Just don't fill all of your consumption with junk.
Yeah, junk. Yeah, I think that's important. The reading, that's funny that you say that. Reading is a dying breed, like an art. It is dying. A lot of people don't read, I think, because, I'm not saying we don't read. I think there's different forms. I know the phone, audio is a thing now. Huge audio books, which is great. Just consume other things besides, your music and social media. I would say that. Just change your consumption. Put something positive, like you were saying, put something positive in the brain, and it kind of just helps. That's a form of centering as well, too.
Yes.
That I found out for me, like reading something outside of something that's on my phone, is a form of centering. So great advice. We appreciate you, Angel. We're gonna give you back your Saturday. I promise you. We did good this time. We did good. And like I said, if there's anything you need, anything that, like I said, if you got anything dropping, like a line, something seasonal, please let us know. We always gonna be looking at your social media. We want to share, repost. We want to draw as much attention as we can to what you have going on and just do our due diligence. Also for guests now, we've tapped into Apple Music. So not only are we in the podcast, all the different podcast platforms, you can listen to it in Apple Music, because I know it's hard to get people away from certain apps. Now, as a part of Apple Music, we would love to give you some collaboration. So I offer a percentage of collaboration. So however the streams go on Apple Music, for the rest of your life, you can get royalties on that. So that's just something that we want to add value to the guests, because I was like, I'm getting all these people on here, but how can I repay them for what they've done for me? And I think just giving them a piece of the royalties and what we're doing is super important. So I'll text you on the details, and if you want to be a part of that, and if you want to do it, we'll get you set up and everything. But thank you so much. It's been great.
Dude.
You have a good Saturday. We did it.
You too. Thank you.